So, what's the lowest temperature you can lay down in epoxy or even a polyaspartic flooring? I guess we'll find out today. Hey guys, this is Luis with Lucho's Improvement Solutions, and today I want to talk about how cold can it be before you cannot apply an epoxy or let's say a polyaspartic coating for your garage floors or any other area. I remember the first time I laid down an epoxy in cold temperature. It was maybe, I don't know, 40 degrees during the daytime. That night the temperature dropped to maybe 20, and I mean, you're going back maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, and I came back the following day and almost had a heart attack because when I stepped on it, the epoxy was still gummy, so it left a footprint in the epoxy, and I had no answers. There was, I didn't know what was going to be the outcome of this epoxy. Would it dry? Would it eventually become a solid? Like, is there a time chill before the resin stops working and then it just becomes gummy and it stays gummy? How long was the temperature going to be down for? Is this floor will dry? Will ever dry? This was a job that I was doing for a client, so I was scared. I was paranoid. So after that, I have no choice but wait it out, see what will happen. I figure if I left it longer, it will work. So that's what I did. I just left the product dry for another 24 hours. When I came back to the job site the following day, it was almost dry. It wasn't completely solid, but it was just about. So based on the day before to the next day, it was becoming a solid. It was going into solid state. So I figure the longer the better. I waited another 24 hours, I think. It was 2 days that it took for the epoxy resin to actually dry before I was able to apply my clear coat. And at that time I was using polyurethane as a clear coat. This is going back. This is going way back when we were using epoxies, when we were using polyurethanes as the top coat, which to this day they're still great systems. Those are systems that I had installed maybe 15-20 years ago, and they're still standing to this day. So after doing that job, I realized that maybe I can still work in the winter, do these jobs, but I have to rearrange some things. I have to take precautions so the curing process will still take effect in cold temperature. Let's take a look at what's going on out here. Going through the grinder process. I still have my old school grinder that I bought used many years ago. My high-end vacuum that I paid $200-300 at Home Depot. So you don't really need the highest equipment. You don't need the best equipment to do this kind of work. You just need to know what you're doing, and furthermore, you need to have the right employees to get the job done with, because when it comes down to it, it's about your knowledge, I mean, don't get me wrong, having better equipment, having the best equipment makes things faster, but I'm not getting 4 or 5 garages a day. This is a job this is the kind of business that if I'm booking 1 or 2 jobs a week, it's a good week for garages. That's why I have to do other things like power washing, paver maintenance. We do commercial cleaning, We do a lot of painting, a lot of handyman work, and when we combine everything together, that's how I earn a living. But if I just going to do this epoxy flooring job as a business, as my only business, it's hard. It's a cutthroat job, type of business. Everybody is, downballing it or selling it for cheap, and it's very hard. If you want to do this as your only main business, it's difficult. But when you combine other things, it can become very profitable. One of my competitors, they do epoxy flooring, and they also do cabinetry, which, that's how they win. They win making the money out of the cabinetry. Okay, so going back to how cold can it be to lay down an epoxy floor or a polyaspartic floor? And the answer would be, well, that depends on your location. If you're doing a floor in an interior space where you can actually put a heater and be able to heat up that temperature, then you're going to be able to lay down a epoxy floor or polyaspartic successfully. It might take longer to cure, but it works. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the manufacturer. If you go by the manufacturer or by the so-called experts, they will say, this is the minimum temperature, the concrete needs to be at this minimum temperature, the resin needs to be at this minimum temperature. But I have done this and I have violated the rules, and it still work. And not only has worked, it has worked from, I'm going back previous, like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years now. So I never had a floor that actually got damaged because I applied it in cold temperature. So not only the floor cured properly, it worked. It didn't put any stress, or it didn't deteriorate the work. It's still going to be a floor that is going to be able to withstand your needs. And if you're crazy enough to try to do this kind of work in the winter, so I can give you some tips. All right, number one, like I mentioned previously, you need to have a heater. Install a heater or put a heater inside of your space, and that's going to help you cure the epoxy or the polyaspartic resin a lot faster. The other tip is your resin. Whatever material you're using, keep it at room temperature. And I don't mean outside room temperature. I mean 70 degrees or higher. If you don't do that, when you mix the product and you're going to go lay it down, the product is not going to move. The viscosity, I hope I said the word right, it's becomes so thick that it's very hard to move. So it becomes a problem. You want that product rolling into that floor like butter. The concrete is going to cool it down, but if you have that epoxy, that resin at a high temperature, you have a higher chance for easier application. You're working in the winter. When you're working in the winter, you're working against the job and you're working against the weather. The weather is just mentally tough, so you have to be mentally tough to do a job like this because it's just so cold. You can't feel your fingers. You're laying down in an epoxy. You have to use speed, and it makes everything 10 times hotter. So do I recommend it for somebody that has no experience? No, I wouldn't do that. I would maybe wait until it gets a little warmer, or do it on a warmer day in the winter. And if you're somebody that has experience but never done it in the winter time, it's doable. Apply heaters. The key is keeping that resin, whether it's epoxy, whether it's polyaspartic, keep it nice and warm, nice and toasty, so when you mix it and you go to lay it down, it was at a warm temperature. I know it's going to hit a cold concrete, but it's still going to work and it's gonna lay down a lot better. Okay, so we are at 36 degrees right now. So if we come inside of the van, I'm keeping my product here nice and toasty. Okay, it's funny, I have product for two different manufacturers. One is from Sherwin-Williams, this other one is for Armor Epoxy. They're based out of New Jersey, so, and they were the first contractors that I ever used, so I'm still loyal to them. I love both companies. Sherwin-Williams, they're very nice, they're very friendly, they're very helpful, very knowledgeable, and that's my buddy, my little buddy right there, keeping it nice and warm in this van. Right now, if I look at the laser, let's see what's the temperature right now. It's reading 91, 95, but it's because the heat's coming straight up. And if we look at my racing, it's reading what? 57, 58, 60, 56 to 60. It can be a little warmer, but yes, I'm keeping it at a warm room temperature. So when we go to lay down this polyaspartic floor, it's much easier to lay down. Polyaspartic floor can be applied at a colder temperature than an epoxy. Polyaspartic coatings can be, they're more giving for cold weather temperature. I believe 30 degrees, some claim to be 30, some claim higher, some claim lower. But yes, you can apply at a colder temperature. You're still gonna run into the same problemas, the same trouble, the being too thick, the product taking longer to dry. So keep that in mind, guys. Keep in mind that if you're doing a one-day system for a client, it's the curing time between the first coat and the top coat might take longer. Also, I have noticed that polyaspartics that have a breakdown, a less purity, meaning a 70% or 80% solids polyaspartic, might cure longer, might take longer to cure than a 95 to 100% pure polyaspartic. So what I'm trying to say is the purer the product is in winter, the faster it tends to dry. So if you're using a product that's a little watered down, just, you know, you got to keep that into consideration, that it's going to take a little bit longer, at least in my experience from all the products that I have tried. If there's any product that I don't know about and you guys know about, please comment down below. I will be, you know, I'm all ears. I want to learn. I've been doing this for 20 years, but I'm still learning. So yes, that's the video I wanted to make. I just wanted to show you guys or talk to you guys about doing this kind of work in winter, because there's so many clients that they call me all winter and they all say the same thing. I want to get my floor done, but I want to wait to the spring to do it, because I have a friend that's an engineer. They all have a friend that's an engineer, and all the engineers tell them, you know, you can't do this in the winter because, you know. So the answer is no, you can actually do it. You just got to know what you're doing, and you got to take steps. You know, it makes the job a little bit harder, but it's 100% doable. Never had a problem. Okay, the worst thing that had happened to me is that I had to wait longer, and this is when I was using epoxy floors. Now with my polyaspartic systems, I still have difficulty, but I mean, so doable. Okay, so yes, don't worry, especially you customers out there wanting to get a floor done. Can a job be done in the winter? Yes. Is the job going to be incorrectly done? No. And this is from me, coming from me, from Lucho's Improvement Solutions. I've been doing this for a long time. I never had a phone call that failed because we did it during the winter time. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say, guys. I gotta go get back to work, finish this polyaspartic floor that I'm doing. Enjoy your week. One more thing, if Anybody in New Jersey is interested in getting a floor done, don't hesitate to give us a call. We'll be more than happy to go out there and give you an estimate. Okay? No BS with us, no 5-step systems. We'll give you an estimate exactly what you need for your needs.